At 3 a.m., my parents texted, "We know you spent $400,000 to save our house, but your sister wants a perfect Thanksgiving without you." I replied with a simple okay. When the day came, they realized what I'd done. I'm Sarah, and I'm 35 years old. This is the story of how my family chose my golden child sister over me one too many times, and how I finally made them understand the consequences of their choices. Let me start from the beginning. Growing up, my sister Emma was always the favorite. She was 3 years younger than me, blonde, bubbly, and could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. I was the responsible one, the one who got good grades, helped around the house, and never caused trouble. But somehow, that made me invisible. Emma got into trouble at school? Oh, she's just spirited. Emma crashed Dad's car at 17? Accidents happen, sweetheart. Emma dropped out of college after 2 semesters because she needed to find herself? She's just exploring her options. Meanwhile, when I got a B+ instead of an A in calculus, I got lectured about not reaching my potential. When I wanted to take a gap year to save money for college, I was told I was being irresponsible. When I chose computer science over the pre-med track they wanted, suddenly I was wasting my talents. But I persevered. I worked my ass off through college, graduated summa cum laude, and landed a job at a tech startup that eventually went public. By 30, I was making more money than I knew what to do with. Emma, meanwhile, had bounced between jobs, moved back in with our parents twice, and was currently pursuing her passion as a lifestyle blogger with about 150 followers. The money changed nothing about the family dynamic. If anything, it made things worse. Now when Emma needed something, a new laptop, help with rent, money for a business investment that was really just another get-rich-quick scheme, my parents would give me meaningful looks and suggest I might want to help my struggling sister. "Sarah makes so much money," Mom would say with a laugh when Emma complained about her finances. I'm sure she wouldn't mind helping out her little sister. It was never framed as Emma asking me for help. It was always positioned as me being selfish if I didn't offer. And when I did help, which I always did, Emma would thank me briefly before moving on to the next crisis, while my parents praised her for being family-oriented enough to accept help gracefully. I started keeping track, almost unconsciously. The $800 for Emma's laptop when hers broke. The $1,200 to help her avoid eviction when her roommate moved out unexpectedly. The $3,000 for her to attend a social media marketing course that would change her life. The $2,500 for her car repairs when her transmission died. Another $1,800 when she needed to pay back taxes. The $2,200 for dental work her insurance didn't cover. The $5,000 to help her start her consulting business that lasted 6 months. Countless $300 to $800 emergencies that always seemed to happen to Emma but never to me. Over the 5 years since I become financially successful, I calculated that I'd given Emma nearly $47,000 in small favors and emergency help. Money that I'd earned, saved, and given freely because I loved my sister and wanted her to succeed. Not once did Emma offer to pay any of it back. Not once did my parents suggest that Emma should try to repay her sister's generosity. It was simply expected that I would give, and Emma would receive, and everyone would be grateful for how close our family was. The dynamic never changed, though. No matter how successful I became, Emma was still the princess, and I was still the afterthought. 2 years ago, everything came to a head when my parents nearly lost their house. Dad had been diagnosed with early-onset dementia at 58, and the medical bills were crushing them. Mom had to cut back her hours to care for him, and they'd fallen behind on their mortgage payments. The bank was threatening foreclosure. Emma called me in tears. "Sarah, you have to help them. They're going to lose the house." I didn't hesitate. Despite everything, I loved my parents. I transferred $400,000 from my investment account, enough to pay off their entire mortgage and cover Dad's medical expenses for the foreseeable future. I didn't want them to feel like a burden, so I told them it was a gift, not a loan. No strings attached. I handled the gift tax implications on my end, which cost me an additional $120,000 in taxes, but I never mentioned that part to them. My parents were grateful, of course. They cried, they hugged me, they told me I was their miracle daughter. For a brief moment, I thought maybe things would change between us. They didn't. Within a month, Emma had convinced them to let her move back into her childhood bedroom temporarily while she figured out her next steps. She'd been living there rent-free ever since, treating the house I'd saved like her personal hotel. But I did more than just pay off their mortgage. Quietly, without telling anyone, I also set up an automatic payment system for Dad's ongoing medical expenses. I worked with their insurance company and medical providers to ensure that any costs not covered by insurance would be automatically charged to an account I controlled. Dad's medications, his twice-weekly physical therapy, his monthly neurologist appointments, his special dietary supplements, the home health aide who came 3 times a week, I covered all of it. The system was designed to be invisible. My parents would never see a bill for Dad's uncovered medical expenses because I made sure they were all paid automatically. They thought their insurance was just really good, or that Dad's condition wasn't as expensive as they'd feared. In reality, I was covering about $2,800 per month in expenses that would have crushed them financially. The resentment started building again, but I try to push it down. Family is family, right? I visited for holidays, sent thoughtful gifts, and tried to maintain a relationship despite feeling increasingly like an outsider. Everything came to a breaking point 3 weeks before Thanksgiving this year. I'd been planning to host Thanksgiving at my apartment for the first time. I'd bought a gorgeous dining set, hired a chef to help with a meal, and sent out invitations to my parents, Emma, my Aunt Linda, and my cousin Mike's family. I was so excited to show them my home and finally take on the hostess role I'd never been allowed to have. Then Emma decided she wanted to host instead. It would be so much more meaningful in the family home, she announced during our weekly family Zoom call. Plus, I've been working on this amazing autumn aesthetic for my blog. The content will be incredible. I watched my parents' faces light up with enthusiasm. What a wonderful idea, sweetheart, Mom exclaimed. Sarah, you don't mind switching plans, do you? Emma's put so much thought into this. I minded a lot. But I swallowed my disappointment and agreed to bring side dishes instead. Over the next 2 weeks, Emma transformed our family's Thanksgiving into her personal photo shoot. She sent daily updates in our family group chat about her vision. Everything had to be perfectly color coordinated, from the napkins to the flowers to what everyone wore. She created a Pinterest board and demanded we all follow it religiously. I tried to be supportive. I really did. I even offered to pay for the more expensive decorations she wanted but couldn't afford. But nothing I did was good enough. My planned green bean casserole didn't fit her aesthetic. My offer to bring wine was declined because she'd already selected bottles that photographed well. When I suggested we use Grandma's china, she wrinkled her nose and said it was too dated for her vision. I started to realize that this wasn't about Thanksgiving at all. This was about Emma finally having something to put on her struggling blog, something that would make her look successful and domestic. And my presence, as the actual successful daughter, threatened that narrative. The signs were there in the weeks leading up to the final blow, but I was too hopeful to see them clearly. Emma had started making increasingly specific demands about Thanksgiving. She created a detailed schedule that had her doing live Instagram stories throughout the day, complete with staged candid moments of family bonding. She assigned everyone roles in her social media production, treating our family gathering like a film set. Sarah, when you arrive, can you park around the block? She asked during one of our planning calls. I want to get a shot of the house exterior without any cars that don't match the aesthetic. I should have seen the red flags then. She was literally asking me to hide my presence for her photos. Then there was the dress code incident. Emma sent a group text with links to specific clothing items she wanted everyone to wear. The suggested outfit for me was a $300 sweater in a color that, frankly, looked terrible on me. Emma, this color washes me out completely, I texted back. Can I wear something similar in a different color? Her response was immediate and sharp. Sarah, I spent weeks planning the color scheme. Everyone else is being flexible. Can't you just go with it for once? Everyone else was being flexible. As if I was the problem for not wanting to look terrible in family photos that would live on the internet forever. But I ordered the sweater anyway. I wanted so badly to be part of the family narrative, even if it meant looking like a ghost in autumn colors. The breaking point started building 3 days before Thanksgiving when Emma called me in tears. Sarah, I'm so stressed. The flowers I ordered are the wrong shade, and the rental company delivered the wrong tablecloth, and Mom keeps suggesting changes to my menu. I've been working on this for weeks, and everyone's trying to ruin it. I spent 2 hours on the phone with her, helping her brainstorm solutions. I offered to drive to 3 different florists to find the right flowers. I said I'd pay for rush delivery of a new tablecloth. I even offered to hire a professional photographer so she wouldn't have to worry about getting the perfect shots herself. You're the best sister ever, she said when we hung up. I don't know what I'd do without you. 24 hours later, she was disinviting me. The final straw came 2 days before Thanksgiving. I was working late when my phone buzzed with a text in our family group chat from Emma. Guys, I've been thinking, and I really want this Thanksgiving to be perfect for my content. Sarah, I know you'll understand, but I think it would be better if you sat this one out. Nothing personal. I just need everything to flow naturally, and you know how you can be. Intense. Plus, your outfit choices don't really match the vibe I'm going for. Love you. I stared at the message in disbelief. She was disinviting me from Thanksgiving. In front of our parents. And she was making it sound like it was my fault for being intense. The outfit choices comment was particularly cruel since she'd literally dictated what I was supposed to wear. I'd spent $300 on a sweater I hated, and now she was using my supposed fashion sense as an excuse to exclude me. I waited for my parents to say something. Anything. To tell Emma that excluding family wasn't acceptable, that I was welcome in the home I'd literally saved. The group chat was silent for hours. I kept checking my phone, waiting for Mom or Dad to push back. Waiting for them to remember that I was their daughter too. Waiting for them to acknowledge that this was wrong. Nothing. I started typing several responses and deleting them. What was there to say? Please let me come to Thanksgiving in the house I paid for? Remember when I saved you from foreclosure? I'm your daughter too? All of those responses made me sound desperate and pathetic. And the silence from my parents told me everything I needed to know about where I stood in this family. Finally, at 3 a.m., I got a private text from Mom. Sarah, honey, we know you spent $400,000 to save our house, but your sister wants a perfect Thanksgiving without you. You understand, right? Emma's been so excited about this. Maybe we can do something just the three of us another time? Love you. I read that message 5 times, each time feeling more hurt and angry than the last. They knew. They acknowledged that I'd saved their house, kept their family together, and sacrificed my own money for their security. And they were still choosing Emma over me. For her blog content. I sat in my apartment at 3 a.m., shaking with rage and hurt, and typed back a simple response, okay. But I wasn't okay. I was done. I called in sick to work the next day and spent it making phone calls. Lots of phone calls. First, I called my lawyer, Janet, who'd handled the paperwork when I paid off my parents' mortgage. Janet, I need to explore my options regarding the money I gave my parents for their house. Sarah, you structured that as a gift, remember? We specifically set it up to avoid any appearance of a loan to protect them from tax implications. I know, but I'm wondering about the documentation. Was there anything in writing about the circumstances? Janet was quiet for a moment. Well, we do have the emails where you specified that the money was to keep the family home safe and ensure your parents could stay together during your father's illness. And there's documentation that it was specifically to prevent foreclosure. But Sarah, you can't just take a gift back because you're angry. I'm not looking to take it back, I said carefully. I'm wondering about the technical ownership status of the house and what would happen if the gift had conditions that weren't being met. That's complex. What aren't you telling me? I explained the situation. Janet was quiet for a long time. Sarah, this is messy territory, both legally and ethically. But technically, if you could prove that the gift was made under specific circumstances that are no longer being honored, there might be options. What are you thinking? I need to understand all my options. Can you research it and get back to me? I'll look into it, but Sarah? Be very careful here. This could destroy your family relationships permanently. I think they've already been destroyed. My next call was to my accountant, Robert. Robert, I need to understand the tax implications of that $400,000 gift I made to my parents 2 years ago. Well, you had to pay gift tax on the amount over the annual exclusion, remember? That was a significant tax hit for you that you chose to absorb rather than burden your parents with. Right. And what happens if circumstances change? What if the conditions under which the gift was made are no longer being honored? That gets complicated. Why? Is everything okay? I explained the situation. Robert was sympathetic but concerned. Sarah, if you're thinking about trying to reclaim that money, you're looking at a legal nightmare. And the tax implications would be messy for everyone involved. I'm not trying to reclaim it, I said. I'm just trying to understand all the ramifications of the gift and what my options are going forward. Well, if you wanted to complicate things, you could potentially challenge the gift structure, but that would trigger an IRS investigation that would affect your parents too. It would be ugly. Noted. What else? You could also stop any ongoing financial support. Didn't you set up automatic payments for your father's medical expenses? I had. I'd been automatically covering about $2,800 a month in medical costs that insurance didn't handle, his medications, therapy sessions, home health aid, and specialized equipment. It wasn't something I'd ever mentioned to my family because I'd structured it to be completely invisible to them. Yes, I did. Well, that's entirely under your control. You're not obligated to continue that support, especially if the family dynamic has changed. After I hung up with Robert, I sat in my apartment and thought. I wasn't trying to hurt my parents, but I was tired of being taken for granted. I was tired of being treated like my contributions didn't matter. I was tired of watching Emma get credit for everything while I remained invisible. I made one more phone call, to my Aunt Linda. Sarah, I was just thinking about you. I'm so excited for Thanksgiving tomorrow. Emma's been posting all these beautiful photos of her preparations. About that, Aunt Linda, I need to tell you that I won't be attending. What? Why not? I explained everything, the disinvitation, the text from my parents, all of it. Aunt Linda was horrified. Sarah, this is unacceptable. You saved their house. You've been nothing but generous and supportive. I know. But they've made their choice. I'm not going either, then. And I'm calling your cousin Mike right now. This is ridiculous. Aunt Linda, you don't have to. Yes, I do. This family has taken you for granted for too long, and I'm done watching it happen. True to her word, Aunt Linda called everyone. By evening, I'd received calls from Mike, his wife Jennifer, and even my cousin David from Chicago, all of them outraged on my behalf. One by one, they texted Emma that they wouldn't be attending Thanksgiving either. Emma's perfect family gathering was falling apart. That evening, my phone started ringing. First Emma, then Mom, then Dad. I didn't answer. I was done talking. The voicemails started piling up. Emma, Sarah, this is ridiculous. You're ruining everything. I've spent so much money on this dinner, and now everyone's bailing because you're being dramatic. Just come to Thanksgiving and we can work this out. Mom, Sarah, please call me back. Emma's very upset. She didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Can't we all just get along for one day? Dad, Sarah, it's Dad. I'm confused about what's happening, but your mom says you're not coming to Thanksgiving? Please come, sweetheart. I miss you. That last one almost broke me. Dad's dementia made him forget things, but he always remembered that he loved me. But I couldn't let my guilt override my decision. This wasn't about punishing Dad, it was about finally standing up for myself. Thanksgiving morning arrived, and my phone was surprisingly quiet. I assumed Emma was busy trying to salvage her perfect day. I spent the morning doing something I'd never done before. I treated myself. I went to my favorite spa, got a massage, had a long lunch at an upscale restaurant, and saw a movie. It was the most relaxing Thanksgiving I'd had in years. Around 6 p.m., my phone exploded. Emma was calling, crying so hard I could barely understand her. Sarah, you have to help me. Something's wrong with Dad's medication. The pharmacy says his insurance isn't covering it anymore, and they want $640 for his prescription. Mom's having a panic attack, and I don't know what to do. Then Mom, Sarah, please, I know you're angry, but your father needs his medication. The insurance company says there's been some kind of change in coverage. Can you help us figure this out? I knew exactly what had happened. The insurance coverage for Dad's expensive medication was supplemented by the automatic payment system I'd set up, the one that covered all his medical expenses when insurance fell short. The account I closed 3 days ago. His prescription cost $800 per month, but insurance only covered $160 of it. I'd been automatically paying the remaining $640 every month for 2 years, along with all his other uncovered medical costs. I could have explained this to them. I could have fixed it with a phone call. Instead, I texted back, "Sorry, I'm busy today. Try calling the insurance company's customer service line." The calls kept coming. Emma called 6 more times. Mom left 3 voicemails. Even Aunt Linda called to tell me what was happening. Sarah, I'm at the house now. It's chaos. Emma's perfect Thanksgiving is just her, your parents, and your neighbor Mrs. Peterson, who felt sorry for them. The food is burned because Emma was too stressed about the medication situation to focus on cooking. Your dad is confused about why his medicine costs so much, and your mom is crying. Emma's locked herself in her room because her content is ruined. What did you do? I stopped subsidizing people who don't value me, I replied. Good for you, Aunt Linda said firmly. It's about time. The reality of what was happening at the house painted a perfect picture of the consequences. Emma's Instagram perfect Thanksgiving had crumbled without the family members she'd taken for granted. Her elaborate table setting looked ridiculous with only 3 people around it, just her and my parents. The expensive decorations she'd bought to create her autumn aesthetic seemed wasteful and shallow when the family was falling apart. Mrs. Peterson, their 70-year-old neighbor, had been invited at the last minute when Emma realized how empty her perfect dinner would look. She told Aunt Linda later that she'd felt uncomfortable the entire time. Emma kept trying to pose her for photos and asking her to repeat conversations so she could film them for her authentic family content. When Dad started getting agitated about his medication costs, a side effect of his dementia was anxiety about finances. Emma had snapped at him to stay positive for the photos. Aunt Linda said Mom spent most of the dinner crying quietly while Emma frantically tried to salvage social media content from the disaster. The irony was perfect. Emma's obsession with creating the appearance of a perfect family had destroyed any chance of actually having a nice family gathering. Meanwhile, I was having the most peaceful Thanksgiving of my adult life. No walking on eggshells around Emma's moods. No pretending to be grateful for being included in my own family. No watching my parents fawn over Emma's mediocre cooking while taking my contributions for granted. For the first time in years, I felt free. The next morning, I had 17 missed calls and a dozen text messages. The most revealing was from Emma. Sarah, I know you're behind this somehow. The medication thing, everyone canceling, all of it. I don't know how, but I know it's you. Please, I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. I just wanted one thing to go perfectly for once. I needed this for my blog. I need something to show for my life. Please help with Dad's medication. I'll do anything. For the first time, Emma was acknowledging that I had power in this family. That my contributions mattered. That there were consequences to treating me like I didn't exist. But it was too late for apologies motivated by desperation. I didn't respond to Emma. Instead, I called Mom directly. Sarah. Oh, thank God. Can you please help us with your father's medication? I don't understand what happened with the insurance. Mom, I need to explain something to you. For the past 2 years, I've been automatically paying $3,000 a month to cover Dad's medical expenses when insurance doesn't cover them. I set up the account quietly because I didn't want Dad to feel like a burden. There was silence. You. What? I've been paying for Dad's medicine, his therapy, his special treatments. Everything the insurance doesn't cover. That's why you've never had to worry about those bills. Sarah, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't want gratitude or praise. I just wanted to help. But when you chose Emma's blog content over having your daughter at Thanksgiving, after I saved your house, after I've been quietly supporting Dad's care for 2 years, I realized that my contributions don't actually matter to this family. Mom was crying. Sarah, we never meant. You did mean it, Mom. You knew exactly what you were choosing. Emma's perfect aesthetic over your daughter who's been holding this family together financially. So I stopped the automatic payments. If Emma's blog is more important than having me at family gatherings, then you can figure out Dad's medical expenses without me too. Sarah, please. We can't afford his medication without your help. The insurance only covers 60% of his prescriptions. I know. I've been covering the other 40% for 2 years. Please, we're sorry. Emma's sorry. It was a mistake. Mom, I need you to understand something. This isn't about one Thanksgiving dinner. This is about a lifetime of being treated like my contributions don't matter, while Emma gets praised for doing nothing. I'm tired of being invisible in my own family. You're not invisible, Mom. You texted me at 3 a.m. to tell me that Emma's perfect Thanksgiving was more important than having me there, despite the fact that I saved your house. How is that not making me invisible? She couldn't answer that. I'll pay for Dad's medication this month, I said finally. But things are going to change. No more automatic payments. No more blank checks. If you want my help, you're going to have to ask for it and acknowledge what I'm doing. And Emma needs to understand that actions have consequences. What do you mean? I mean that if she wants to exclude me from family events for her social media content, then she can't also expect me to bankroll the family finances. She can't have it both ways. I transferred the money for Dad's medication that afternoon, but I didn't restore the automatic payments. From now on, they would have to ask for help, and I would decide case by case whether to provide it. The aftermath was swift and dramatic. Emma's blog, which had been struggling for relevance, took a final nosedive. Her 150 followers had been expecting to see her perfect family Thanksgiving content, but instead, they got radio silence. When she finally posted a week later, it was a rambling, self-pitying post about unexpected family challenges that came across as tone-deaf and entitled. The comments were brutal. Maybe focus less on aesthetic and more on actual family relationships? Wrote one follower. This sounds like privileged people problems, commented another. Your sister probably had a good reason for not showing up. Maybe look at yourself instead of blaming family challenges, said a third. Emma deleted the post within hours, but screenshots had already been shared in several Facebook groups about influencer fails. Her attempt to monetize our family dysfunction had backfired spectacularly. But the real consequences were financial. Without my quiet support, my parents were struggling with bills they hadn't had to think about in 2 years. Dad's medication was just the beginning. There were co-pays for his therapy sessions, costs for his special dietary supplements, fees for the medical equipment that made his daily life easier. I'd been covering all of it automatically, without fanfare or recognition, for over 2 years. The total monthly cost was usually around $2,800, but I'd structured it to come out of an account I'd set up specifically for their medical needs. They'd never had to see the bills or worry about the costs because I'd handled everything silently through automatic payments to their healthcare providers. Now they were getting every bill, seeing every charge, confronting the true cost of Dad's care for the first time since his diagnosis. Mom called me every few days with a new financial crisis. The home health aide who helped with Dad's physical therapy. The special bed that prevented pressure sores. The modified shower equipment that let him bathe safely. All of it had been covered by my automatic payments, and all of it was now their responsibility. Sarah, I had no idea how much you were helping, Mom said during one particularly teary phone call. The bills just keep coming, and I don't know how we managed before. You managed because I was handling it, I told her simply. I set up automatic payment arrangements with all of Dad's healthcare providers right after I paid off your mortgage. I didn't want you to worry about money on top of everything else you were dealing with. Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't want Dad's illness to become about money. I wanted you to focus on his care and your family time together. I thought that was more important than getting credit for paying bills. The silence on the other end of the phone spoke volumes. For 2 years, they'd been living in a bubble where Dad's expensive medical needs were mysteriously manageable. They'd never had to choose between his medications and groceries, between his therapy and utilities. I'd made sure all his uncovered medical expenses were automatically paid without them ever seeing a bill. And they'd had no idea. Mom called me every few days, updating me on Dad's condition and hesitantly asking if I could help with specific medical bills. I helped with some and declined others, depending on whether the request came with genuine appreciation or felt like an entitled demand. Emma tried to reach out multiple times, but her apologies felt hollow. She was sorry she got caught, sorry there were consequences, but she wasn't sorry for the years of taking me for granted. The extended family was firmly on my side. Aunt Linda made it clear to my parents that their treatment of me was unacceptable. Mike and Jennifer started inviting me to their family events explicitly, making sure I knew I was valued and wanted. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, Emma moved out of my parents' house. She couldn't afford to live there without a job that actually paid money, and the tension had become unbearable. She moved in with a friend and finally got a job at a marketing agency, a real job with real responsibilities. The house felt different when I finally visited in December. Emma's Instagram props were gone, the fairy lights, the perfectly arranged throw pillows, the artificial autumn leaves that had been scattered artfully around the living room. It looked like a home again instead of a stage set. Dad seemed more relaxed too. Without Emma constantly positioning him for photos and asking him to repeat conversations for her content, he could just exist in his own space without performing for an audience. "I missed you at Thanksgiving," he told me when I hugged him. "Hello. Emma said you were busy, but I kept looking for you." Mom overheard and started crying. "Dad, Sarah wasn't busy. We made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" Dad asked, his forehead creased with confusion. "We let Emma exclude Sarah from Thanksgiving," Mom said quietly. "We chose Emma's wants over Sarah's feelings, and it was wrong." Dad looked at me with a clarity that sometimes broke through his dementia. "That was stupid," he said simply. "Sarah's the one who takes care of everyone. Why would you not want her at Thanksgiving?" From the mouth of a man with dementia came the clearest assessment of the situation anyone had made. The conversation that followed was the most honest my family had ever had. Mom finally acknowledged the years of favoritism, the way they'd taken my contributions for granted, the expectation that I would always be available to fix problems while never being truly valued for it. "I think I was threatened by your success," Mom admitted. "Emma needed us, and that felt good. You didn't seem to need anyone, so I didn't think about what you might need from us emotionally. I needed to feel like I mattered," I told her. "Not just my money, but me. I needed to feel like I was a valued member of this family, not just an ATM that occasionally shows up for holidays. You do matter. You've always mattered." Then why was it so easy to choose Emma's blog content over having me at Thanksgiving? She couldn't answer that question, and I didn't expect her to. Some truths are too painful to speak out loud. My relationship with my parents slowly started to improve, but it was different now. They had to acknowledge my contributions instead of taking them for granted. They had to ask for help instead of assuming it would always be there. They had to treat me like an adult family member instead of an invisible ATM. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. 6 months later, Emma called me. She'd been in therapy and wanted to make amends. We met for coffee, neutral ground. "Sarah, I owe you a real apology," she said. "Not because I need something from you, but because I finally understand what I did wrong." I listened. "I've spent my whole life being the favorite, and I never realized what that cost you. I never saw how hard you worked or how much you sacrificed for our family. I just saw you as someone who had everything figured out while I was struggling. When you became successful, I felt even more inadequate, so I leaned harder into being the good daughter, the one who was emotional and needy and required taking care of." She paused, stirring her coffee. "The Thanksgiving thing was the worst thing I'd ever done. I was so desperate to have something impressive for my blog, something that would make me look successful and put together. Having you there reminded everyone, including me, that you were the one who actually had it all figured out. I was embarrassed, and I dealt with it by trying to erase you instead of dealing with my own insecurity. Emma, I never wanted to make you feel inadequate. I know that now. You were just living your life and being successful. I was the one who made it a competition. And when I asked Mom and Dad to choose between us for one day, I never thought about what that would do to you. I thought you'd just roll over like you always did. I was tired of rolling over. I'm glad you didn't. It forced me to look at myself and grow up. I'm in therapy now, trying to figure out who I am without being the family baby. And I got a real job, one that actually pays enough for me to support myself." We talked for 2 hours. It wasn't a magical reconciliation, but it was a start. Emma never became my best friend, but she became my sister in a real way for the first time. She stopped expecting special treatment and started treating me like an equal. She got her finances together and stopped relying on our parents for support. Most importantly, she learned that being the golden child came with a cost, and that cost was never developing the skills to stand on her own. My parents and I rebuilt our relationship too, but on new terms. They learned to express genuine gratitude for my help instead of treating it as a given. They made an effort to show interest in my life, not just my bank account. And they never again asked me to sacrifice my dignity for Emma's comfort. The $400,000 I spent to save their house was worth it, not because it kept them from foreclosure, but because it finally forced them to see who I really was and what I'd been doing for our family all along. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop doing everything you've always done. People don't appreciate what they have until it's gone, and that includes family members who take your love and generosity for granted. I learned that I don't have to set myself on fire to keep other people warm. I learned that being the responsible one doesn't mean being the invisible one. And I learned that saying okay to being excluded was the first step toward demanding to be valued. That 3 a.m. text changed everything. Not because it was the worst thing my family had ever done to me, but because it was finally so blatant that I couldn't pretend it was okay anymore. Sometimes you have to lose your family to save yourself. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you find a better version of your family on the other side.